As you've probably figured out by now, the process of flight instruction involves a gradual transfer of responsibility from the flight instructor to the student. At first, the flight instructor is responsible for everything. Then, as time goes on, the student assumes more and more responsibility. And as you start making solo flights, your instructor will help you evaluate the risk before you go. But once you leave the ground on a solo flight, it's up to you to control the risk. Now, here is good news for you. Airplanes are reliable. The only questionable part about flying is pilots. In fact, most airplane accidents happen because the pilot caused a perfectly good airplane to crash. The numbers support this. The pilot causes 85% of all aviation accidents. And even then, in the rare event when the aircraft does cause a problem, in most cases all the pilot has to do is guide the airplane while it slowly glides to the ground. Now, this is all really great news for you as a pilot, because since you are the major risk factor in an airplane, you can do something about it. You are in control. So you should set a major goal as a pilot to do everything you can to minimize risk. Now, pilots are special people. You have undertaken to do something that's not easy to do, that requires a serious commitment over an extensive period of time. After all, what else do you do that makes you sweat while you're sitting in a seat? So when you have a room full of pilots, you know that all the lazy people are gone and all the quitters are gone. By definition, because you're a pilot, you are an achiever. And you're known as an achiever by people you associate with. You also have a fine self-image as an achiever. You wouldn't be willing to fly if you didn't know that in fact you are competent. Now that is all good. But it can lead us to believe that we are exempt from doing stupid things. I used to see accident reports and say to myself, thank goodness that'll never happen to me, because that guy was obviously stupid, and I'm not. What I didn't realize, and I hope you will, is that even the smartest people can do some of the dumbest things. And as Mark Twain said, everyone's a damn fool for 15 minutes a day. Well, I know for a fact that sometimes I get even longer than that. Now, the problem with general aviation pilots isn't skill. It's our attitude towards risk-taking. Now, I know myself that I have done stupid things because I was by myself or only had a passenger or two on board. Well, that makes no sense. So here is a standard that you can use when you're about to undertake an activity in an airplane and wonder, is this safe? Ask yourself, would I do what I'm about to do now if I had 100 paying passengers on board behind me? In other words, if you were an airline pilot with 100 paying passengers, would you be willing to do this? If the answer is no, then why in the world would you ever want to do it with the most precious person in the world, yourself? So ask yourself that question before you do something questionable in an airplane. And if you can't answer the question, yes, I do this with 100 paying passengers on board, then don't answer it yes for yourself. And remember this standard when you become a private pilot, flying with the most precious commodity of all on board, your family and friends. The reason why it's so important that you as a pilot do everything you can to minimize risk is summed up in an old aviation saying. It goes like this: aviation in itself is not inherently dangerous, but to an even greater degree than the sea, it's terribly unforgiving of any carelessness, incapacity, or neglect. You see, the thing that makes flying in itself so wonderful and special is also the thing that makes flying unforgiving. It's the fact that we're leaving the ground behind. It is exciting to be able to control an airplane in all three dimensions and about all three axes. But at the same time, we must keep in mind that we have to manage the way in which we recontact the Earth.